What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of Unleash, the weekly panel discussion show. Unlike last week, we are starting it off the way we're supposed to with my two good friends sitting here already, no surprises, and Jay did put together a fantastic outline. So expect a more organized show. All right, so let's go ahead and introduce these two men who really need no introduction, but love them so much, I'm going to do it anyway. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all. He is the senior editor at Sherdog.com. Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on?
Hey, I'm doing really well. A happy Martin Luther King Day to the panel and anybody watching.
All right, absolutely. And of course, the panel is anchored every day by the man with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of Sherdog.com. Not sure if it's quite him. We'll see underneath that I Fox with Juice podcast mask. But I believe that's Jay Petrie. Jay, what's going on?
That is. I got this from a friend of the show and our pal Juice. So I wanted to rep it for a minute here to open the show. Give some love to our pals over there. Look, guys, this weekend had a lot happening in a very small amount of time. I was just swimming in raw stats. Like, I love it, man. I don't know where to start or where to begin, man. So I'm just going to try and give you one of like 15 stats of the week. We'll work with me here. So 445. It's a number you've heard a lot. 445. That's how many significant strikes Max Holloway landed by himself on Calvin Kattar this past weekend, which is, to say it's a record is just doing disservice to the term record. Like, this is a number that he shattered his old total by 155 strikes. It defies description. You can't fathom this in an MMA context. Like, you have to go over to boxing for a 12-round fight to see punch totals like this. Just otherworldly performance from Max Holloway. So 445.
That's a hell of a stat right there, and a very fitting one too, considering right before the main event began, when they were showing the stats on the screen of who had the all-time on the all-time leaderboard of significant strikes in the UFC, Max Holloway was number one on that board, and by a long shot, by somewhere like around 350 strikes ahead of the closest person to him, and that was Joanne. And you think about some of the fighters that have had many more fights than Holloway have had. Some people that have had more 5-rounders that go all the way to decision. Think about the time in the octagon spent by like George St. Pierre or Frankie Edgar, and like, man, Holloway has eclipsed those numbers and shattered them, to say the least. But as far as that performance is concerned, forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn here, but I'm going to rank Holloway's performance among the all-time best single night showcases that we've seen in the sport of mixed martial arts. Gentlemen, am I talking crazy? Do you need to talk me off a ledge, or am I speaking some wisdom here?
It's one of the most breathtakingly dominant performances we've ever seen. If you don't think it's the greatest performance relative to high-level mixed martial arts that you've ever seen, then it's really just down to a question of your own judging criteria. What I'll say is this: it is the greatest Max Holloway performance. It is the perfect, just ideal Max Holloway performance. Everything that makes him great was just cranked up to 11. And everything that is, normally a weak spot for him was diminished. Just the fact that he didn't have the Holloway slow start. It's like he skipped the first round and he was just in second round gear as soon as the fight started. Just completely unbelievable. And this was against a very, very credible opponent. I'm worried that in the wake of this, people are going to use this to kind of fade Kattar instead of praising Holloway appropriately. But if Kattar had won convincingly on Saturday, he might have been in line for a title shot immediately. At worst, he would have been one more fight away. So you can't diminish that. This was a top 10, if not top 5 opponent that he just completely obliterated.
Yeah, at this stage, to not to try and challenge somebody and start a contest about it, but I almost defy somebody to say, okay, show me a greater pillar to post performance. I'm not talking about a walkout 9-second knockout kaboom. I'm not talking about, because you could say, yeah, Jorge Masvidal, because he needed Ben Askren in the head and didn't get hit. Yes, okay, maybe fine. But from bell to bell, unfortunately, isn't this crazy, Duffy? He started slow relative to his own performance in this fight. Like this is a Max Holloway who traditionally can give up the first 2 rounds. Look to his fights with Jose Aldo before he started picking things up. For many examples, he started slow relative to his performance as he progressed. Like he only threw 100 and change strikes. This is a Max Holloway who in the 4th round threw 191 strikes in a 5-minute span. This is a guy who averaged 29.8 significant strikes or strikes thrown per minute. He's throwing a strike every 2 seconds for the entire fight. This is a guy who you want to get some more numbers, and nobody seemed to enjoy this one on Twitter. So you remember when Don Fry fought Takayama and Prad, right? And they're just beating the life out of each other for 6 minutes, and it's mayhem and insane. If Fry were to have kept up that pace for the entire 25-minute span, he wouldn't even come close to what Holloway did. Like this is a guy who would have had to pump up that pace to catch Holloway. You can't possibly fathom this, and that it's almost kind of funny. And I don't want to dive into political things too much, but this is when statistics start to become almost abstract because it's just the numbers are too big to fathom. That Max Holloway hit Calvin Kattar in the head 274 times. How do you compute that? You can't. I can't. Just to watch that performance, write up the play-by-play and go, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to try and accurately tell the audience what is happening here because it is beyond everything we've ever seen from this kind of fighter. You just can't. You can't look to it and say, well, Cain Velasquez over Junior Dos Santos was a better performance. Well, but no, this was the pinnacle, I think, for me. And I don't mean that from a recency bias standpoint, from a purely objective, what he did. He didn't finish the fight. If that's what you're upset about, then you may need to look somewhere else because, I'm out of words now, guys. I'm out of words.
Totally understandable. I mean, I'm thinking of, and I've talked about these 2 performances in particular a lot on this show because I typically highlight them as the best examples of pure mastery in mixed martial arts, and that's Anderson Silva over Forrest Griffin at UFC 101 and Conor McGregor over Eddie Alvarez at UFC 205. Those are my 2 shining examples of a perfect mixed martial arts display. Max Holloway belongs in that sentence now. I mean, he did not get the finish, but credit Calvin Kattar's toughness to that and not anything that Holloway could have done differently. I mean, he hit him from pillar to post with everything he had to offer. The lead elbows were fantastic. The way he was ripping to the body, that slip to the outside with the hook to the liver, money all night. The cross was fantastic. The cross counter, I mean the fake cross to the head kick on the same side was absolutely stunning. And he just kept doing things like this over and over and over and over again. Oh, and then he decided to have full-on conversations with whoever was outside the cage. His son wasn't there, so I guess he was talking to DC or something. Yeah, and he said, "I'm the best boxer in the UFC," while looking at the commentary team, slipping punches that he's not watching and throwing back. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. I'd be hard-pressed outside of the aforementioned Silva and McGregor performances to find something better than that. Maybe Izzy over Paulo Costa is the only other thing I can think of, aside from those prior 2 examples, that's in the same category as what Holloway did.
I mean, you've named most of the other candidates. I also throw in there Holly Holm over Ronda Rousey. And while it's a slightly apples to oranges thing, I also think of Ryan Bader winning the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix without taking a single significant strike in 4 fights.
Very good one. Very good example.
A good one there.
Yeah.
I think where it stands above all the ones you've mentioned, which are, again, top 5 performances that if I were to introduce a friend to the beauty of mixed martial arts. You show him some of those fights and just watch Anderson Silva kind of flick Forrest Griffin. You know, that's the kind of performances you want to show off and be like, this is what we got here. But a 25-minute that you can't match it. And that's where it stands out to me, is that it wasn't 3 minutes. It wasn't one round of clowning Ronda followed by punting her in the head when she crashed into the wall, which was beauty in itself. But this was Max Holloway dancing. You know, this was like a dance fight for him almost. And yet he still got hit. That's the crazy. I think that might be crazier than the actual performance, that all of the things he did. He also took a comical amount of punches. He got hit 100 times in the head by Calvin Kattar, a guy who had never done that before. By the way, he brought out the best Calvin Kattar has ever been in a fight in terms of strikes landed and accuracy and all the things that brought into the fight. Basically everything, the best. You always hear the pre-fight hype and you go, I just want to fight the best, so I'm the best version of myself or whatever. Well, that was the best Calvin Kattar that we've ever seen by what he did to Max, and he looked like a child. It's just it's too good, man.
Yeah, there was a lot of hyperbole on the broadcast because this was the first time that the UFC was on ABC, and it was also around Muhammad Ali's birthday. I don't know if it was his birthday or his birthday weekend, whatever the case may be. So there was always, they kept comparing Holloway to Ali. I'm going to go out with another all-time great sports performer, Michael Jordan. I remember a game. This is such a vague memory from my childhood, but I remember a game. I believe he was matched up against Gerald Wilkins this one game, and I don't know if you guys remember, but Jordan routinely clowned the shit out of Gerald Wilkins. There was this one game where Jordan he scored like 40 something points or something like that, and he just outmatched him for the entire time. I think Wilkins scored somewhere around 20. And he had like statistically a decent performance, and it was considered to have a good game against Jordan. But your good game against Jordan, you still got slapped still. That's what I'm reminded of watching Holloway and then seeing the statistics that show how good Kattar actually did at certain moments. But now, gentlemen, we're left with a crucial question here about the man who is blessed, and that is, what do we do next with him? 2 losses to the champion, Alexander Volkanovski. Clearly, he has the ability to turn away top contenders that have their own claim to a title shot. What do we do next with Max Holloway?
I'll jump out. I think he needs to fight Alexander Volkanovski for a third time. When I did the preview show ahead of this card, I asked my co-host Keith, like before even asking for his pick for the fight, I said, what would it take for you to want to see Max Holloway fight Alexander Volkanovski for a third time? And I asked because I had the feeling that he was going to have the same kind of answer as me. I don't know, but a hell of a lot. Like, I couldn't even describe what Holloway would need to do to make me want to see him fight Volkanovski a third time. I've seen it, because the only thing he could do is convince me that he is still getting better rather than plateauing or starting to regress at age 29, but with a ton of fight mileage on him. But he is improving. He looked better against Volkanovski the second time than the first, to the point that some people argued that he won the fight. And then he completely obliterated Calvin Kattar. His decision to go to a minimal to no hard sparring format for his camps seems to have made a positive difference. He looks fresher. He is a faster starter. His gas tank, his gas tank has always been good. It's even better. He just looks sharper, and he seems to flow more creatively. Maybe he's not the kind of guy that needs thousands of repetitions pounded into him at this point in his development, but he looks sufficiently improved that I would like to see him fight Volkanovski for a third time, even knowing that if he beats Volkanovski, that's another immediate rematch, which normally is poison for me. So yeah, I'll say it. I want to see him fight Volkanovski a third time.
I'm glad someone said it, but I wasn't going to be the one to do so. I think when you bring up Holloway not sparring anymore, I think the Robbie Lawler, it was before he fought Johnny Hendricks in the rematch ahead of UFC 181, I believe. And he said he doesn't really spar anymore, and you could tell. You could see in his performance out there, he wasn't quite, I don't want to say punch drunk because this is Robbie Lawler we're talking about, but there was a quickness, he wasn't shop worn after a long, hard training camp, because we know that from some guys that they just get beaten down from the training camps, and Robbie looked fresh. Max, man, remember we were ripping on Max Holloway for only training on Zoom and not sparring anymore and all that. What a difference 2021 must make. I don't know. But all that said, I don't want to see Volkanovski fight him next. I don't want him to wait for the winner of Ortega and Volkanovski either. I want to see there's one contender, a true contender on a long winning streak that makes all the sense in the world, that has a long, fun fight style. I still think he needs to have that one big win on his ledger to beat to the top, because he beat Calvin Kattar was his best win. Zabit Magomedsharipov. I think that has to be the fight that makes some sense to make contenders fight contenders and not give Holloway another title shot, because former champion, incredible performance, dude. You can't even. I mean, this performance counts for 3 wins almost in terms of like the UFC look at it. But this is a guy who's on a 1-fight win streak after 2 consecutive losses to the champion. I had Max winning the second fight. I scored it like that for the Sherdog.com play-by-play, and I stand by it. I watched the fight again over the holidays, and Max won that fight. But 2 losses to the champion. I don't want to burn a trilogy in the span of a year, for 16 months. I mean, that's what it could very well be, because they first fought in December 2019, and to go through a trilogy faster than Stipe and DC seemed to slowly lumber through their once-a-year trilogy match. What happens if Max loses? There's nothing left.
Ortega beats Volkanovski. Then you got Max lined up to fight a lower-ranked contender, while a guy that he thrashed is holding the belt.
Yeah, and that's why that by the time that fight is going to happen, that fight's in March, so June, probably maybe July. By the time Max wants to fight, I think give him a fight in 2-3 months. Headline a late March, maybe the fight night card after 260. So you kind of line up Volkanovski and Ortega's title fight with Holloway and Zabit. Or hell with it, just put them on that card. But I want to see 5 rounds of that. So that's why I think headline a fight night. Zabit and Max, I think that's the way to go. Because then you can also have what Zabit looked like in the 5-round fight. You can have that too. So that's a question answering fight that I think should happen next.
I'm loving what Jay's saying. I'm buying this full stop. And on top of that, I would actually say the only change I'd make to anything that Jay proposed right there, I would make it the fight night before UFC 260. Okay. So that way you can start the promo for the next contender already.
That Max the specter that's looming like Diaz behind GSP.
We can get that shot of either Max or Zabit standing up, glaring at the cage, a la Conor at UFC 200.
I can dig it.
That sounds like a beautiful thing to me.
How am I stuck in the middle of this dummy sandwich?
You know what? That was so good. I don't have a comeback. So you know what? Fuck you. Oh man! All right.
No, there are no wrong calls here. Honestly, like it would take a lot for them to fuck this up.
It's something, and I am proud of this. I'm not the first person to say this. I'm not the last. This is just another example. Put Max Holloway against Calvin Kattar. That's probably going to be a great fight. Spoiler alert, it was. It's just, that's this division. That's, I think 145, more even than 135 or 170, which people say 170, you can't have a bad matchup. I could see a couple. You put Damian Maia against Leon Edwards, but you just put featherweight. Let's see. Brian Ortega versus Josh Emmett. Okay, that's probably going to be ridiculous. Zabit and
And Korean Zombie.
Korean Zombie.
Yeah, I'll take it. Like, yeah, it's too many good possibilities there. So I think we're playing with house money at this point. And even still, even if we find a situation where Ortega beats Volkanovski and now he's looking at Max Holloway as his first title defense, well, we saw a greatly improved Brian Ortega in his last outing. So adds a little intrigue to that, even though I would kind of favor the same result to take place. But still, there's enough of a question mark there to where we will watch it with a smile on our face. But fellas, let's talk about the flip side of that coin from Saturday night, because we did allude to some of the success that Kattar had as far as finding Max Holloway's chin. But man, he was eating the wrong end of it for pretty much the entirety of 25 minutes. Now, who is responsible here? Is it Calvin Kattar's corner for not stopping this fight, especially in that record-breaking fourth round? Or are we pointing at Herb Dean as someone who should have waved it off at some point? I'm gonna jump out of turn a little bit and give my 2 cents on this before you fellas weigh in. I think this is all on the corner. I do not believe that Herb Dean should be held responsible for this. Kattar was doing just enough to be considered intelligently defending himself from the referee standpoint. His corner, on the other hand, has to be worried about winning the fight. And when it's clear that he was not winning the fight, time to throw in that towel. I just simply thought they forgot to bring the white towel out to the cage with them, because it was pretty disgusting what we saw and their lack of action while their man was taking so much damage. Fellas, what's your take on this one?
There are some cases where I think it is on the referee. Teixeira versus Smith. I think the referee could and should have stopped that on numerous occasions. Here, Kattar's own toughness and his own power were his own worst enemy. Because even though he lost every minute of every round in record-breaking fashion, he also hit Holloway hard every round. If I were the ref, it would be tough for me to say, okay, that's the moment I should stop it, because he was there. He was there standing his ground and returning fire pretty much the whole time. There's a reason that Herb Dean followed Calvin Kattar to his corner after the fourth round and basically hovered there. That was his moment to just like waiting for Tyson Chartier to say, okay, we're done. Instead, he put some ice on the back of his neck and said, I believe in you, go out there and shock the world. It's hard for me to criticize that. I have friends who are fighters. I have friends who are coaches. If I were in the corner, even though it's my job to protect them, it's an emotional decision. They're fighting for, if not their life, their livelihood, their career, their legacy. I wish the corner had stopped it after the fourth round, but I'm not up in arms about it. This isn't Teixeira versus Smith, where Smith had no offense to offer for the last 3 full rounds of the fight. There was no chance of Smith coming back that was going to be snuffed by a corner stoppage. So yeah, I wish the corner had stopped it. Not surprised, slightly disappointed, but I'm not up in arms about it. It's not part of the narrative of this fight to me. I won't be thinking about that, a year from now when I'm remembering this fight.
I think I will. And I think that's really unfortunate. I decided not to make that comment when I was writing the play-by-play that, this fight should probably stopped, like I have in the past for certain beatdowns, that I'm like, okay, anytime you're ready, ref, that kind of feeling, or anytime corner, you can go, we're done here. I feel like, and I used this parallel earlier to talk about boxing numbers and boxing stats. If this were a boxing match, it would have 100% been called on the stool, by whether it was by the referee, whether it was, I don't know, necessarily by the fighter, but by the corner. And I think, this is a fighter who, in Calvin Kattar, who absorbed 141 shots in a round. Like, there aren't a ton of performances where a fighter will absorb 141 strikes in a fight. And in this small, and just because I'm the numbers guy right now, I'm bleeding numbers from my eyeballs. Holloway landed more strikes in that 5-minute span than Kattar did in the entire fight. and they were significant strikes, damaging blows, elbows over the top, just all of the things, the head kick that made Calvin kind of squirrely there at the end of that round. You know, Kattar's best round, I mean, I say that in terms of from his offense standpoint, he was most effective in the fourth round because Holloway was just beating him just senselessly behind the barn, and Kattar was getting his licks in when he was just kind of closing his eyes and going, well, I'm going to hit something if I keep throwing my hands like this. And he did. He hit Holloway pretty solidly. There were a few moments where Max had to go and then go, or he'd go, there were those little moments, but it just didn't seem to me enough for me to see my fighter's performance the last 20 minutes and go, you know, I know that he has been savaged for the past 20 minutes, but maybe he'll get that knockout blow because something. I don't know. I don't think Calvin Kattar needed to take an additional 84 shots. I don't think he needed to take an additional, 50 headshots in the fifth round. Just the stigma about throwing in the towel, corner stoppages, whatever you call it, maybe even just simply renaming it so it doesn't sound like you quit, because that's such a harsh way to describe it. Maybe just as simple as saying, you know, this was a corner retirement or something like that, just to maybe loosen the sting of it, because, you know, there would be no shame if people went, yeah, he's good. I mean, it just made sense to me, but I guess poor Calvin Kattar's got to get hit in the head 50 more times to send a message.
You know what? I think, and granted, we've heard these stories before, and this could definitely dampen anyone's outlook on combat sports, something that we obviously love and spend a lot of our time and efforts dedicated toward. But man, it was kind of hard to revel in the damage that Calvin Kattar was taking so soon after reading that heartbreaking article about Spencer Fisher.
Yeah.
You know, to know that that's the sort of fight that, you know, years down the line, Kattar can say, hey, this is the moment that my brain broke.
Yeah.
And granted, we could tell that story again and again and again and again. And if we look at fights through that lens constantly, might just take all the enjoyment out of it. But man, just that timing was a little bit too close for me. That's a little bit too close for the level of cognitive dissonance we need to have to just enjoy fights as stupid caveman fans.
Yeah, I mean, the Fisher story was incredibly well done, and I'm very happy to have been able to read it just so I could see that, you know, because we know about this. We know this as media members and speaking to fighters and speaking to trainers and camps and corners and all these. We know these exist, but to have that put there, like, this is a guy in Spencer Fisher who, we're going to play numbers again, maybe a couple times through his UFC career, by the way. In one single fight, he ate 50 shots. And this is a guy who 50 strikes, period. In the entire fight, Spencer Fisher may have absorbed 50 strikes against, say, Ross Pearson or something. And Kattar took those extra in one round. You know, it feels like that we're going to have a story about this in some time, and we're going to look back and go, oh boy, here we go.
You know, one thing too, like, of course, the absolute best wishes to a full recovery for Calvin Kattar, and hopefully this is not going to be a big roadblock in his career, and he can kind of get back on the horse when it's time and it's safe for him to jump back in there. But man, you know, it will be very unfortunate that so many people are going to look at him as if he's some sort of bum, when he is in fact one of the best pure strikers at featherweight, and just an entertaining, exciting fighter in his own right, and tough as nails. So I don't want that to be lost in the sauce, for sure. And if we see 100% of Calvin Kattar coming back, guarantee there aren't many, if anyone else in the division, that can do that to him. To have the output that Max Holloway did in that fight, it takes a fitness level unmatched. It takes a strategic approach unmatched. It's not normal. It is not normal. So if you think the blueprint to defeating Calvin Kattar was established Saturday,
Put
Sorry,
400 strikes on him. You can get him
because you can't do that.
That's the blueprint to beat every fighter.
Yeah.
Let 400 strikes.
If your name is not Max Holloway, you can't do that. It's just that simple. It defies the laws of physics. What happened there? So anyway, fellas, definitely something we want to keep an eye on for what Calvin Kattar looks like on his return, or whenever that will be. But we're going to move on to our swing or miss. And while we're on the subject of hyperbole and the subject of great sports moments being used for talking points on the first ABC broadcast, man, that tweet from ESPN showing Khabib and then showing LeBron James before the decision, well, they hyped this up. They really hyped this up. The decision, Dana White having this much talked about closed doors meeting with Khabib Nurmagomedov, complete with a social media post of a door shutting as the two walked into the room. Probably the most mundane video I've ever seen on social media, but anyway, so they made a big deal about this decision. What was Khabib going to do? Was he going to actually retire? Or was he coming back to fight the winner of Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, which we have coming up at 257 this Saturday? In fact, the answer was maybe. We did all that for maybe. Maybe Khabib comes back, and that's if he is impressed by what he sees on Saturday night. Are we swinging or missing on this one? Khabib comes back if the winner in Saturday's main event does something special enough. Miss. Ben, I'll begin with you. Oh, sorry, Jay.
Miss. Still miss. Khabib has done nothing to encourage this speculation. He's not been John Jones. He's not, tweeting every time a high level lightweight fights. He's never given any hint of going back on his word. He even sort of seemed to accept this meeting just kind of with a shrug, like, okay, if that's what you want. It doesn't help that this is a fight between two people he completely dominated. It would really help if one of the people fighting on Saturday was, say a Tony Ferguson type, if Tony had not lost, so that there was something else to prove. I really do think that's the only motivator he has left. He said, I have no interest in fighting McGregor again. I wouldn't coach against him on The Ultimate Fighter for $1 trillion. I believe him. He's always been a straight shooter. He doesn't need the money. He's proven just about everything you can prove within the confines of one division without, moving up or down in weight. He's the most dominant UFC lightweight champ of all time. I just don't see anything that Poirier or McGregor could do to make Nurmagomedov feel as though he needs to prove anything. I don't think he's coming back.
Jay?
Miss. No, I'll go into it very briefly, though, because it just... I'm not on the bandwagon that he will never return. I mean, again, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Even Fedor came out of retirement. I just don't see a permanent goodbye to the sport. I just don't think he'll come back anytime soon. When I was kind of chewing on this idea, and I got the official email announcement press release from the UFC letting us know, hey, just to be ready at 3:00, there's going to be an announcement, guys, get ready. It's going to be really exciting, that kind of nonsense. And of course, at 3:00, nothing happened because the UFC actually delayed it until the end of the first fight as a sort of a bait and switch that, yeah, obviously. But at the same time, who was going to tune into the broadcast that wasn't already going to watch it? What fight fans say, I can skip this awesome main card that might not look great with star power, but I just want to hear about Khabib. I don't care about the fights. No, that's no such thing. The hardcores were watching anyway. The casuals weren't anyway. This isn't anything of that they were trying to do. And the fact that the UFC seemed to think they would catch some people with this little net, that's nonsense. I ran a poll with Sherdog staff members, a kind of a snap straw poll where I presented three options. The first was that Khabib announced his return and he would keep his belt. He'd say, I'm going to come back. I'm going to defend it. Option 2, Khabib's done for real, and he gives up his belt, and Conor versus Poirier is fighting for the title next week. And the third one was that the announcement was a smokescreen, and we don't learn anything. Now, that's what I predicted would be the case. It would be number 3. I think a certain other panelist also agreed at the same time. Lo and behold, oh, no way. I can't believe there's no answer at the end of this thing. This announcement, if you want to call it that, had Dana White's fingerprints all over it. Like this was Dana-ism from the beginning. This was promoter hype. This was, if I get people talking about Khabib, they'll hope and tune in to watch 257 to see the fight and to see, hey, maybe Khabib's going to blah, blah, blah. No, it's not going to happen. It's all bluster. It's all hype. And it felt inorganic to me. Like the whole thing felt like kind of like a Disney forced packaging kind of let's see if we can get this together and kind of pull a few people in. It didn't feel genuine. And I didn't buy it. So I'm missing. Khabib won't come back anytime soon. He'll be back. He'll probably be back in like 4 years and do what GSP did and fight somebody at welterweight, win the title and bail. That's probably what he's going to do.
Yeah, I'm missing this all the way. I mean, what a goofy way to try to lure people to watch the show. Like you said, Jay, like if you are not an MMA fan, you are not tuning in to see what the Dagestani champion wants to do. Like you're just not. This is not on your radar. And if you're already watching the fight, well, you're going to watch the next one next week, most likely already. So doesn't matter. This was just an attempt to drum up a few suckers into parting with what's the price now, $75 or something to watch the next pay-per-view. That's all this was. Tune in to see if Conor McGregor or Dustin Poirier somehow managed to Hadouken one another in order to lure Khabib back. And quite frankly, if they Hadouken each other, or we see a sonic boom or any sort of other fighting game special move you can think of, can they do that shit against Khabib? Probably not. So I don't think that's really going to matter. I mean, really, the only way this quote unquote announcement would have had any legs to me was if Dana was sitting down with Khabib's mom. That's really the only way I would have taken anything from this. Someone on Twitter pointed this out and said, hey, if this is Khabib's decision, why is Dana speaking for him so much? So we'll just leave you to ponder that one because, man, I don't have a good answer for that one either. So, gentlemen, it is time to move on to the greatest titled segment in all of media history, and that is I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons. So we're going to share something that surprised us or ironically did not since the last time we met to speak about face punching. So, Ben, I'm beginning with you. What is your I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Well, watching UFC, on ABC 1 on Saturday, watching UFC on ESPN 20, Fight Island 8, whatever we call it, this Wednesday. We're going to see our first glimpse into what UFC cards are going to look like in year 2 of COVID. In 2020, from the time they came back in May, it was just this madhouse of fighters stepping up and debuting on short notice, of the UFC signing basically everybody who won on the Contender Series in 2020, and a lot of last-minute reshufflings of matchups due to, either to the virus itself or, other things that were kind of occasioned by it. 2020 was the year of new faces in the UFC. Some fighters took advantage of that and became superstars overnight. Some people complained about what it did to the product in general, although if the alternative was nothing, well, I think this Wednesday's card is a glimpse of 2021. There are currently 14 fights in the card, 28 fighters. Of the 28, 9 of them did not fight at all in 2020, including 4 fighters making their UFC debuts. That means the UFC signed 4 people that have not fought in at least a year, and most of them it's around 14 or 15 months. How do you scout somebody who has 5 fights and hasn't fought in over a year? Or if you had a 3-fight winning streak that ended in October of 2019, do you have momentum right now? Now, obviously, 2 of the debuting fighters are named Figueiredo and Nurmagomedov, so they had a shortcut to get their mixtape on the Sean Shelby's desk. But it's going to be interesting because the UFC is now having to draw fighters who last fought in regional promotions that completely suspended operations last year. I think it's going to be interesting to see what it does to the quality of the product in the cage. The lines have already been blurred almost to the point of irrelevance. The lines between, a quote unquote UFC level fighter and not. The average UFC prelim is not especially distinguishable from an LFA card, or an Invicta card, depending on who's fighting. I think that's going to get even worse this year. I shouldn't be surprised. This is the natural results of the UFC basically being the only promotion running for most of last year, until Bellator and ONE came along. But I am surprised, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it.
All right, Jay, what is your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Yeah, I'm also similarly not amused by the, I don't want to say card quality because the event hasn't happened yet. So I can't tell how good Chiesa versus Magny on ESPN is going to be. But when I have to wake up at 9 a.m. to run play-by-play on an event that has 14 fights on it with only 1, 2, 3 top 10 fighters on the card, I think maybe about that many. It's just, I don't want to go down the path of coughing on about UFC fighters and level and quality and watering down the product and all that. So instead, I'll leave UFC behind and say, well, at least they're running events right now, because there's some promotions, basically all of the other major promotions, not counting one championship, which we're not sure what's going on with them, but that's a different story entirely. Is that Bellator is notoriously silent. Bellator, who runs 20 to 30 events a year, period, the end. It just has always done so. And Scott Coker, the head of the promotion and a former Pettyweight champion, mentioned that he was thinking the Bellator would start up around February and still get in the right number of events. And there was no little more information. Well, one fighter, a preliminary fighter, kind of broke the information on his personal social media pages that there would be an event on February 26th. Now, I reached out to Bellator to confirm that this would be the first event of the year because I have scoured everything I could scour, and this appears to be the first information about a Bellator event. Now, if they're having one soon, you probably need to tell people about it. So if there's a month away, maybe okay, they have a month to chew on this event. But that means Bellator has burned 2 months of the year and still wants to get in the same number of events and do whatever else that Bellator wants to do. It's just, look, I don't know what's going on. I know that 2020 was a very difficult year for matchmaking. Jack Slack, a friend of mine, a former colleague at Vice Fightland, has poked the bear a few times, talking about how I believe the last 18 favorites on Bellator main cards all won in a row. So there's been a little matchmaking issue going on, to say the least, because if there aren't even accidental banana peel upsets, then okay, it's not. What did you say? It's not betting, it's investing at that point. So yeah, Bellator, get it together, guys. Give me a call back at least. I'll help. I'm a media member. Help me help you.
Yeah, man. So yeah, we probably shouldn't have ghost events going on in 2021. But I'm not surprised. Mr. Falcon's moment shouldn't be a surprise that this will be my moment, because you guys know me. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day, as Ben said at the top of the show, which means a bunch of people who don't know what they're talking about start quoting Martin Luther King. And of course, mixed martial arts, with this plethora of ill-informed people, have decided to jump headfirst into this fray. So posts from Tito Ortiz and Jorge Masvidal, a few others that don't have any clue of what they're talking about, quoting Martin Luther King, while they probably would have been, not probably, definitely would have hated the man and been hardcore against him, a la Mike Pence, if he were alive now. So just knock it off. Like, just enjoy a day off from work, and don't say stupid stuff on social media, please. Thank you. All right. So let's move on from here, because now we are back in the full swing of things as far as the fight schedule is concerned. So busy week for us, fellas. Wednesday will be a fight night card featuring Neil Magny and Michael Chiesa in the main event. Then, of course, Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier headlining a pay-per-view on Saturday. So, but let's dive into the Chiesa Magny card first. Fellas, I'll start with you, Ben. Who you got, Magny or Chiesa?
I have Chiesa narrowly, but, it's not a pick I make with confidence. It's a very evenly matched fight.
Jay, who you got?
I'm more confident in my pick than Duffy. I'm actually surprised that he's so reticent about Chiesa's path to victory. I think Chiesa has Chiesa's striking has been and will always be means to an end. That's okay. That's fine. He's a grappler first. That's good. Do your thing. That said, we know that one-dimensional specialists generally have a hard cap in the UFC historically. You can think of very few examples where a one-trick pony, a brilliantly skilled practitioner of jiu-jitsu, a Damian Maia, can get to here. And there's nothing wrong with being here. But Chiesa, I believe he has more ways to victory because of the ground game that he implements. I think that he's going to frustrate Magny. I think it's going to be one of those games where Magny, with the long reach advantage, is going to try and box and not get up and close and personal and do like the step in elbows that he likes to do. I think he's going to want to try and avoid that, because Chiesa, this is going to be one of those performances where Chiesa is going to try for a takedown in the first 15 seconds. That's kind of thing that I think Chiesa is going to bring to the table. At welterweight, he has looked a far better, stronger wrestler, which is very interesting to me. That you think a wrestler moving up 15 pounds has a strength advantage over foes that he's been facing. This isn't a guy who's been beating up, nobodies. I mean, Diego Sanchez is fine. Okay, great. Carlos Condit isn't traditionally very strong, defending takedowns. But Rafael dos Anjos, this is a guy who beat Rafael dos Anjos last year. And we saw what dos Anjos did to Paul Felder recently. So I think Chiesa has that edge. And I'm picking him to win the fight.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward Chiesa for this one. As far as his performances now, like the level of strength that he has, I can say for sure from the two times that I've talked to him, and been face to face with the man, that's a big guy. How he made 155, I'll never understand, because he looks big for 170 as well. So it makes sense that he's that much stronger and he's that more dominant at 170 now, because he's probably eating a meal for a change. You move a little better when you've had breakfast a lot of times, and I think that's really the difference now. So he's just coming into his own. Probably the strength training, I'm sure, changes as well, so he can just build upon a very, very strong frame that he already has. I think Magny, despite his improvements since he's returned, I see this going down a lot like the Rafael dos Anjos fight, where you have the guy who is on paper the better striker, has the better reach, and you think he could just pop a jab and keep him to the outside. If you're feeling fancy with it, a front kick up the middle, and maybe just keep him back. But I think that length gets him in trouble. I think once you get those tall guys and you get inside that range, you start having your way with them. And although Magny is a nasty guy in the clinch, as he showed against Jing Liang, I don't think that's going to go over as well with someone like Chiesa, whose bread and butter is the clinch and dragging you down and beating you up once you get there. So I think this is going to be Probably not the most aesthetically pleasing main event that we're going to see, but I think it's going to be one-way traffic for Chiesa once he gets going. So there's that. Now, gentlemen, what is a fight? I mean, this isn't exactly a card stacked with names, as it seems like most of the names will be geared towards Saturday when you have to go behind the paywall that's behind the paywall. But for the first paywall, what fights are standing out for you Wednesday night?
You know how when in the past we've talked about events, and this isn't necessarily a great card per se, but it has fighters that I look at down the card and go, okay, I like this one. This ain't that. This is not that either. I love Roxanne Modafferi. I've had many conversations with her. She was a longtime member of the Sherdog community. Probably one of the first fighters I regularly communicated with for a time. So I guess I'm looking forward to the Roxy fight more as a personal thing, because I like Roxy, but at the same time,
if you like Roxy, why are you looking forward to this one?
Yeah, so here's the problem: is that Roxanne Modafferi wins and loses fights. Just that's been her pattern, and she just won a fight. So Vivia Ruggiero is probably going to toss her around. But I like Roxy. I like a fighter like her being at the top level, despite blah blah blah, despite the things that people kind of attribute against her, and that she can still do the darn thing. But man, this is, I want to be wrong, but as a guy who's running play-by-play, I'm struggling here. This is not a card that normal humans and not insane people like myself should get up early to watch on a Wednesday. Sorry, UFC, this is not it.
Ben, any matchup that you want to highlight, or are you kind of in the same boat as Jay?
Well, for the most part, the people that I'm excited to see on this card are in showcase matchups. Ricky Simon, Sumud RG, Dalcha Lungiambula. I'm excited to see him at middleweight. I compared him on my preview show to Remo Terry Sokaju. Not just because they're both African guys with dreadlocks, even if one is from South Africa and one's from Cameroon, but they're both judo black belts who nonetheless would really just rather take your head off with haymakers, and whose like ridiculously jacked physiques kind of hid the fact that they were actually slightly undersized for their division. So if Dalcha can drop to 185 and be anything, can be present physically, he could do some damage there. I'm excited to see that. Mostly excited to see Hurricane Ike Villanueva. I make no pretenses of being an impartial observer here. There's two different levels. There's, hey, I'm pulling for the guy from Houston. And there's, oh, I actually really personally like this guy. I know all of his kids' names. And there was every chance that Ike was not going to get a third chance in the UFC, even though both of his first two fights, they had little asterisks next to him. But not only did they give him a third fight, they gave him a third fight in the feature main card attraction of the evening, third from the top, and they found a guy that he's actually a betting favorite against. I love it, and it is a true two-outcome fight. He's either going to knock Vinicius Moreira out in the first round, or he's going to get tapped out in the first round. If the end result is anything other than that, buckle up, because it's probably not going to be a fun fight to watch. But that's the one. Looking for Hurricane Ike to blow away Vinicius Moreira and get at least one more shot in the UFC. Living the dream.
And I want to ask you something before you give your answer.
Okay.
Where in the hell is Dalcha Lungiambula going to cut 20 pounds from?
I don't know. He have to leave the squat rack alone for a little bit. That's the only thing I think. I mean, the guy doesn't look like he has an ounce of fat on him. No. So I don't know. Circumcision, perhaps. I'm not quite sure. Thanks for that one, Ben. So, yeah, that's one of those things where like you're gonna have to get some serious nutritional guidance.
Yeah.
On how you do that safely. I mean, the thing is though, when someone is that muscled, they probably can stand to spare some of it. To an extent, and at least that makes the water cut a little bit easier, because there's a lot of water in every muscle cell. So that might make things a little better. But man, that is a lean dude. I don't know where it's going to come from, quite honestly.
But, I mean,
stupid.
Hear me out here. In his 2 UFC fights, he's weighed in. He weighed in 205 and 203.
Yeah,
there's a chance that despite how jacked he looks, he's only 5'10". He may not actually walk around at that much more than 205. You know, it's kind of the same thing. And again, like, I feel terrible making the comparison to yet another guy of African extraction, but Czech Congo, where everyone was like, oh man, Czech Congo is like the hugest, scariest heavyweight in the world, and he weighed in at like 228 pounds. Just when you have like that V taper and just those shoulders, you look deceptively heavy, especially if you have no body fat. So I mean, Dalcha may not be one of the heavier 205ers in the UFC at walking weight.
Sounds like Ben has a secret MLK Jr. post on Twitter today. So, but no. I mean, you're probably right. I mean, it'd be interesting to see, but it just, weight cutting is so stupid. So I hate even speculating on it beyond that. But this card is, I mean, it exists. That's really the point of it, to exist. They want to get some extra use out of Fight Island. Knock one of the ESPN obligations off, and it's a time slot where maybe you pick up a few people. Probably not. I mean, there's going to be this is not going to feel like a normal week for American audiences, at least. The holiday today, Monday, as we're recording this, be Tuesday, I'm sure, when you're watching this, and then we have inauguration in a couple of days. So this is not going to be a regular work week. So you're probably going to catch a couple people at home tuning in before the ceremony start and whatnot, and you'll get a few fights off. Cool. That's really the purpose of this. This is just to keep our attention briefly and to advertise more McGregor Poirier commercials and find new ways that they can insert Joe Rogan's scream into the broadcast. That's it.
No!
Like, oh!
Okay, I don't want to harp on this because I know we still have a couple more topics to do and we're kind of running long. Okay, it's a card. It's a filler card. Okay, we can accept that. There's a top 10 matchup, and then there's a couple showcases. But why does it have to be 14 fights long? If it's going to be a filler, and we know the UFC can run with 7 fights and meet its obligation, why does it have to double that on Wednesday morning?
Because those fighters need fights. Otherwise, they get paid to do nothing. So that's probably just to offer fights.
I'll give you that. But there are so many newcomers that I mean, again, we can have a show on this, and I kind of want to have a show on this, talking about how the UFC is simultaneously telling everybody we're cutting fighters. We're going to cut 60 people. How many people, Mr. Duffy, are newcomers on this event?
Well, there are 4 newcomers that didn't fight at all in 2020.
There are 4 new.
You could have cut this card by a couple of fights pretty easily just by not signing them. It doesn't make sense, and again, this is a rabbit hole that I really do want to touch on sometime, and we'll table this. But if the UFC is so dead set on thinning the roster, how is signing so many new fighters that? I'll be honest, some of them may not be UFC level. And I don't know what UFC level means anymore, because when Mason Jones, who is an excellent prospect and a great Cage Warrior standout, deserves to be on the roster, the same as another fighter who is signed, it's apples and shoelaces at this point. You can't compare the two, but they're both UFC fighters. So I don't know. I'm struggling. It's something I've been dealing with since I started researching this card in particular, saying, yes, it's a filler card. There are probably going to be good fights on it. It's probably going to be better than we're saying it is, because when you lament a card and trash on it, it delivers because your expectations are so darn low. I get that. But why does it have to be so long? Why does it have to occupy Wednesday until probably, at this rate, doing the math, probably about from 9 o'clock to like 3, maybe 4 o'clock, depending on how long this thing goes? Why?
Yeah, I mean, when you ask why does it have to be so long, it's a question I've been asking myself for years. So anyway,
happy MLK Day.
That's what she said.
All right, fellas. So we're going to move on now to the speed bag, and this is where I get to flex my authority on you mofos. Now, disclaimer, if I get a text message or some sort of other notification on my phone, it is right next to my microphone, so things might vibrate, but I need to have it right here so I can operate the clock. So we are going to start off with you, Mr. Duffy. The first question, you will have 10 seconds. Of course, we're going to do this round robin, so Jay, pay attention as well. Is Carlos Condit as close to a title shot as the commentary booth believes? Ben?
No, absolutely not. I am a huge Carlos Condit fan. I would not favor him against any top 20 welterweight. Like, how's he going to get to a title shot?
Jay?
I love Carlos Condit, but no, stop it. Please stop.
All right. Jay, this question will start with you. Do you think Santiago Ponzinibbio suffered from cage corrosion in his loss to Li Jingliang?
Well, thank you for putting it like that. I believe it's cage corrosion and not ring rust. Yeah, I don't think he was able to get his footing by the time Li Jingliang knocked his block off.
And Ben?
I don't know. We'll need to see him the next time to know whether this was cage rust or this is just the new Ponzinibbio. He had terrible infections. He had COVID. He had surgery. May just be done.
All right. And Ben, you're going to wrap things up with this last question. What would it take for another fight besides Holloway Kattar to win Beatdown of the Year?
Brass knuckles. Like a sock full of quarters. I have no idea.
And Jay?
It won't. It can't. I mean, seriously and truly, whomever is writing it up for SureDog.com, just write the article now. Don't bother with anything else.
All right, good. So now I'm going to switch the clock over to 30 seconds. See, here we go. Boom. And I will answer all three questions in succession. The clock will begin as soon as I finish reading the first question. So, is Carlos Condit as close to a title shot as the commentary booth believes? Man, that must have been some strong shit they were smoking. To even insinuate that Condit has any realm in the title picture is absolutely ridiculous. But no disrespect, Condit is a legend. Love him to death. Do you think Ponzinibbio suffered from cage corrosion? I don't know. I need to see more evidence of anything. Who knows? As far as a beatdown of the year, I say Holloway Ortega 2 could be that, or Holloway versus a K-pop star that Ortega already beat up. So those are the only other ways we're going to get a bigger beatdown of the year. So, fellas, now Fight Island's tour is going to officially end, at least for this stint. I'm sure they'll resurrect it. I don't even know if is it really considered Fight Island now because they're at Etihad Arena?
They've still got everything branded with like the little Fight Island logo, though.
Yeah,
oh yeah, they were putting all the really like the Super Mario Brothers looking island stuff on the broadcast. Yeah, whatever. So anyway, UFC 257 this weekend. McGregor Poirier rematch, no belt on the line now since Khabib didn't really say anything on the decision and Dana didn't either. Does the UFC give a belt to the winner of this somehow, some way?
I think either by like a de facto award, like you're the champion now, kind of like when the UFC acquired Strikeforce or WEC and said, okay, we're promoting you as the champion, or when Renan Barão just decided, the UFC decided, okay, we're done with this whole interim thing, you're the champ now. Like it feels like that. It feels like even if the winner doesn't have gold in their hands, Conor's probably going to walk out with a belt. This is a line he's already been pushing, is that he's the champion because blah blah. I don't remember, but nonsense. I think the winner is going to be the UFC may actually call him some sort of a champion, or try and do that little wiggle to call him the champion without calling the champion, like just some nonsense to promote the winner of this fight. Yeah, the winner will be the lightweight champion by the UFC's called.
Ben, I want to shift directions just a little bit before handing the baton over to you. Any other time the UFC is so willing to create belts, they're so quick to slap an interim title on something. I mean, they made they made a fake BMF title. They invented a title out of the thin air between two guys who otherwise would not have been fighting for a title, just for shits and giggles, to put a little celebrity pizzazz on a pay-per-view card. Why are they just not going full stop with a title? Even if you don't want to strip Khabib and you still want to lure him back, why not just throw an interim tag on this?
I don't know, and I'm actually very surprised. I'm surprised. I assumed this was going to be for an interim title, and they would use that as part of the hook to try to get Nurmagomedov to come back for one more fight. I still would not be surprised if they just announced that ad hoc, like during the broadcast, like Dana pops out, bright red and says, well, what we're doing, and just and yells that they're going to give an interim title to the winner of the main event. If they don't do that and time just keeps ticking and Khabib doesn't come back, I could see them just calling the winner of this fight the champ. Normally, I don't think they would do that because there would be other lightweight contenders with arms up in the air about it. But it's hard to argue that these are not the number one and number two guys. And they're both guys that have, held at least interim belts and have only lost to Nurmagomedov, who presumably is out of the picture. So they could do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I get like the lure of, maybe not trying to piss off Khabib by throwing a belt out there, because I guess it's that real possibility. But the UFC has shown so much disrespect to its own interim champions that, like, for instance, Colby Covington being an interim champion was just a complete farce. They showed absolutely zero respect to the belt that they put on a presidential promotion tour, as well. So it just showed what they cared about it. And they've done that in the past with interim titles, meaning absolutely nothing, as Tony Ferguson can attest to after tripping over a cord in a studio promoting his fight. So, I'm just at a loss for words of why we're going through this. But if I'm not mistaken, there is a press conference scheduled for the Thursday before the fight. I would not be surprised at all if, when that press conference starts, there's a belt sitting on the podium somewhere. I think that shocked me one bit. Yeah. And that would also be a hell of a move from a promotional standpoint. It's just now that you imagine the headlines that this is for a title, all of a sudden, like, that's going to be breaking news all over SportsCenter. And maybe those few suckers that you didn't lure in with the possibility of McGregor helicopter kicking Poirier, now they'll be like, oh, I'll part with my money. So I think that's the ace up the sleeve that the UFC is pulling off. But anyway, let's move things along to wrap the show up, because we've got 3 fights at the top of this card that warrant some attention. So, Ben, I'm going to begin with you. Jessica Eye, the former title challenger, versus Joanne Calderwood, the would-be title challenger, who lost out on her opportunity recently. Who you got?
Give me Jessica Eye by a grindy and not terribly pleasant to watch decision, followed by a grindy and extremely unpleasant to listen to post-fight interview.
That sounds pretty raw and real to me. Jay, who you got?
Embrace the grind is going to be something that we're going to probably think or feel during this fight. Yeah, I see Eye as the... God, I don't want to use the descriptor great, but she's the great nullifier in this fight. I mean, she is the nullifier. I guess is probably more appropriate. She will kind of latch on to JoJo. Maybe try for a takedown or I guess the operative word is try here. Yeah, I can see a 3-round performance where we look at this fight and in classic Ben Duffy manner, try and assess what did we learn from this fight, and we go, nothing at all. Nothing in any regard, and we move along and wonder why the UFC decided to burn one of his contenders on a big pay-per-view event.
I'll let me just pop in on that real quick. Plenty of people have beaten Jessica Eye. Only Valentina Shevchenko has looked good while doing it.
Yeah,
like, that's nullifier for you.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Ben. I'm gonna give the edge to Jessica Eye for that exact reason. I mean, typically you don't just style on her. Like she's one of those fighters where kind of like a Jake Shields, where you might be able to beat them, but it's very, very difficult to look good while doing it. It's very, very difficult to be impressive or memorable in those performances. I think this is what we have. I don't think Calderwood has really any enough strength in any one area to dominate Jessica Eye the way you kind of would need to. I see her controlling the pace, slowing things down to a crawl, popping her on the outside with the jab, stuffing any takedowns by surprise, shooting on her own a little bit, out wrestling her for position, and not really taking too many chances. It's going to be a long 15 minutes, and the timeline should be quite entertaining while the fight may not be. So, fellas, on to the co-main event. Former Bellator lightweight champion Michael Chandler makes his debut against Dan Hooker. Fellas, I'll start with you on this one, Jay. Who you got?
Well, just to make sure you guys are in agreement here, this is the fight of the night, right? Like this is the one that to me, I think would win fight of the night. Although the UFC loves to spoil Conor McGregor. He has a disproportionate amount of performance and fight of the night bonuses for what he's been doing. So he might just get one for being involved in a fight, win or lose. But just in terms of what the two guys bring to the table, I just feel like this is fight of the night more than Saruki and Hakparas, for example, which also sounds like it could be a really interesting fight depending where it goes. Man, I'm probably going to change my mind again by the time I get there. This is one of those fights that to me, Hooker's pace, Hooker's volume, his accuracy, I think is going to be an issue. But at the same time, we have seen Chandler go through top guys, former UFC champions, just do all kinds of great things in Bellator to finally come over here. I'm disappointed just feeling this fight right now. And this isn't a disservice to Hooker, but it's going to be a great fight, and I'm looking forward to it, but I just don't know if this was the right opponent for Chandler to get for his first opponent. It's like when Eddie Alvarez was brought on and fought Cowboy. That is a really nasty stylistic matchup. And what happened? Cowboy had the stylistic matchup advantage, leg kicks, good damage, accurate striking, and busted up Eddie. And Eddie Alvarez, a former champion from another organization, was brought over to lose. I feel like this is that matchup for Chandler right here. I think the Hooker is going to overwhelm him. I wish it was a 5-round fight. I truly do, because I think that the fight would change fundamentally after the 15-minute mark. And I'm a little saddened that this fight didn't get that treatment, the 5-minute treatment. I think Hooker is just going to work him, stay on the outside, avoid the big shots, stay out of danger, maybe not get taken down too long, because Chandler can mix things up very well. But I see Hooker getting the hand raised.
Ben, who you got?
Both these guys have been active since 2009. So going on 12 years now. At any point in their respective careers up until about a year and a half ago, I would have favored Chandler heavily in this matchup. But the things that have made him great, and he was truly great, I think his legacy as one of the greatest lightweights of his era is going to end up getting downplayed. I think his showing against UFC champs of his era is it's a double standard. It's used to discount those champs like, Henderson, Alvarez, where like Fedor's performance against former UFC champs is used to hold up the idea that he was the greatest heavyweight in the world all along. It's an unfair double standard. Having said all that, the things that made Chandler so great really have begun to fade. And I do favor Hooker now. And unlike Jay, I don't even know if an extra 2 rounds would help, because I think Hooker has looked generally good in the 4th and 5th rounds of his recent fights, where one of the things that is starting to go on Chandler is the ridiculous gas tank and work rate that he used to have. I think Hooker wins a pretty straightforward decision here. Hooker isn't a super heavy-handed striker, which helps because Chandler his chin is not what it was. But yeah, give me Hooker by a pretty straightforward decision, maybe 4 rounds to 1, something like that.
Yeah, I'm going to.
2 rounds to 1. Yeah,
2 rounds.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and side with you two gentlemen on this. I'm favoring Dan Hooker, and I'm questioning why the UFC will put this fight together to have one of the biggest names outside of the octagon making his debut in the UFC at a time where they need stars. They went out of their way to promote him in a way that they haven't promoted other bigger name signees. To have him featured on a pay-per-view, the Khabib and Dustin pay-per-view, have his own segment on this pay-per-view after trying to slot him as an alternate and having him cut weight and everything in preparation for a title fight, to then put him against one of the worst stylistic matchups in the division just sounds crazy to me. And it's one thing if it's a bad stylistic matchup, but a huge name. But it's another thing when it's a name that only rings bells with the hardest of hardcore fight fans. I said from jump, I thought the best debut opponent for Chandler would have been Nate Diaz, someone who Chandler could beat through a couple of different ways. It could go either way as far as the styles matchup on that fight. But either way, you have a big name that he can bounce off of, and that way you can get as many eyeballs on him as possible. Because if he wins that fight, then wow, he beat Nate Diaz. He must be the man if you're a casual. If he loses, man, that was Nate Diaz though. Man, what a tough matchup. Hey, but at least we got Nate Diaz over a little bit more. What's up with that Conor trilogy? So there are ways that they could have done this better, I think, for the long-term health of just their promotion. I don't like this because I think Chandler, who has sustained a considerable amount of damage over his career, certainly doesn't have the chin that he once did. Put him against a city kickboxing standout. I'm sorry, that sounds like a great opportunity to get turned into a heavy bag. Even if Dan Hooker isn't the one-shot knockout artist, he's someone who has enough diversity in his strikes, enough fluidity in his combinations, where I think it's the shot that you don't see coming that's really going to lay the thunder. I think he finishes Michael Chandler in the 3rd round. I got a 3rd round TKO after a pretty clear-cut performance from Dan Hooker. Maybe we see Chandler rebound and get some good wins. I think we will. I think he does beat a lot of the UFC's lightweight division, but just not Dan Hooker. I got Dan winning this one. Now, gentlemen, the big one, the main event, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier. Ben, who you got?
I actually was leaning Poirier for a while. I rewatched Poirier versus McGregor 1 and all of Poirier's other fights since then over the last week. As much as Poirier is improved and as great a fighter as he is, McGregor is just the worst, singularly worst stylistic matchup for him in any division in which he's ever competed. Because, I mean, how have people really beaten Poirier other than like very early on in his career? Like, Khabib dominated him, but that wasn't the blueprint. That wasn't the stylistic problem. Like, if it was easy to just out wrestle Poirier and hold him down and mash him, more people would do it, but nobody else has. I mean, the only other guy to out wrestle Poirier really was Danny Castillo way back when Poirier was like a kid. It's McGregor, because as much as Poirier has improved, he's still hittable. And he's tough and he's blood and guts, but he's not one of these guys with a completely invulnerable chin. We were just talking about Dan Hooker. I just referred to Dan Hooker as not a super power striker, but he touched up Poirier a lot, and a lot of it hurt and kind of had him like looking not so hot. People who hit hard and pressure counter striker types that can run Poirier onto their punches are his poison. You just said the punch you don't see coming is the one that hurts the most. How did he beat him the first time? With a punch he didn't see coming. As I really think all of Poirier's improvements are just going to be for naught. This is going to look like the first one. And it's a shame, but Ant is so upset about it that he left the call. Oh, there. Okay, he came back, but yeah, give me this one to look a lot like the first one. McGregor by first round knockout.
Jay, are you in agreement right there?
Negative, Bravo leader. I'm stepping on your toes because I'm excited about it. Look, it's very strange how making a pick for a fighter is a standard thing that people in the community have done for days gone by. But when you pick against Conor McGregor, people are mad at you. And I can't understand that from even a fan perspective, where I'd go, boy, I'm a big fan of this fighter. How dare you pick against him because you think that the other fighter has a path to victory? I will never understand that. And that's surprising because you think it'd be an easy thing to conceptualize. No. Why are people upset if you pick against, my favorite fighter? It doesn't make sense. Look, I know Dustin Poirier is very hittable. He is. It's the truth. Max Holloway surprised him. And Max Holloway is another guy like Dan Hooker who will put a lot of volume on you, and he will hurt you by volume and simply wearing you down and until you crumble, like the Aldo fights and the beating Ortega's fight and, Calvin Kattar, his corner stopping the fight. Oh, wait, he didn't do that because he's irresponsible. It's the kind of thing where I don't know if it's a gut feeling or it's the fact that Conor McGregor is a 3-1 favorite. I've been watching Poirier's fights, and I believe, and this is an odd thing to believe, that his durability has increased. His chin has gotten better. And I don't know how that could be. I don't think you can train that unless you're like in Happy Gilmore taking fastballs from the pitching machine or something to get going to take a shot. But he has been able to take a shot and recover. And I think that's something that will frustrate Conor McGregor. And I only have one real serious straight fight in the last several years, because that's right, Conor McGregor has only fought a couple times in the past several years, is the Nate Diaz fight, the first one, where Conor hit Diaz with everything he had, with every possible shot as hard as he could. He busted up Diaz, and Diaz laughed at him. And I think Poirier can do that. I mean, Poirier is going to have a really rough first round. There is no denying that. If there's a prop bet for who wins the first round, put it all on Conor McGregor. I am done with that. I understand that. I see why a lot of people say he'll get the first round knockout because of that. But Poirier's recoverability has and whatever he has been doing to get through the worst of it and come back, I think is something that is going to surprise and irritate McGregor. If you look at Poirier's performances, he took some damage against Anthony Pettis. He took a crazy amount of damage against Justin Gaethje. Guy couldn't walk, and still got the knockout at the beginning of the fourth round. The Eddie fight, the rematch for the knee, he got hit pretty hard. The Holloway fight, Holloway kept it close and worked him back too. I see his chin is not cracked and it's not broken. Michael Johnson put him away. I personally believe that Michael Johnson's knockout of Poirier was more impressive than Conor's, but that's a whole different story because of the way that he went down. I see Poirier's path to victory by out-toughing McGregor and out-harding him and dealing with the first round and rolling with it and doing just enough to make Conor honest. And I think in doing so, he'll get to the later rounds, and by the third or the fourth round, when Conor, who historically has cardio issues in the later rounds, will fatigue. Do you remember when in the second Nate fight, when Conor gave up that round and he was just spent? That is the killer instinct that Dustin Poirier has to finish the fight. And I think should he be able to get it there, I think he can do it. So I'm going Poirier by fourth round, third round stoppage, like a TKO. And I think people are going to be very surprised. They're going to be very mad. And it's going to be very interesting, but I'm looking forward to it.
It's hard for me to poke holes in either one of your two analysis of what's going on here. And Jay, while you do state a very strong case for Dustin Poirier, I'm going to have to side with Ben on this one. I think Conor McGregor gets it done. But I'm not going to – I think the key, though, is not falling for that first round KO trap. If he does fall for that, man, it could be a long night for him. And I don't think that Poirier necessarily has a stronger chin. I think he's just now he rolls with the punches differently. He doesn't just stand straight up and take it anymore. Like he's moving a lot more. But I think the movement is the key to McGregor's victory here, because typically when Poirier is moving and he's at his best, he's in a square stance. He just squares his shoulders up and he's ripping those hooks up close. I don't think you really are going to get McGregor in positions where you can do that a whole lot. His footwork is normally a little bit too nimble for that. From the outside, trying to you can't really guide him where you want him to go because he's too busy guiding you with a lot of long range weapons. And then on top of that, if you are standing in front of Conor McGregor in a square stance, prepare yourself to get unloaded on with combination striking. And combination striking, I think, is normally the key to cracking the code for guys who can take a punch. Having that tap, 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 tap is much different than having that one boom that you got to absorb. Gaethje had the boom. Eddie Alvarez had the boom. Michael Johnson had the boom, but they didn't have that extra taps. They didn't have the peppering of shots leading up to the boom. I think that's the key for McGregor. Now, if we are talking about a fight that goes into the 4th and 5th round, yeah, we might have a different conversation here. But at the same time, McGregor showed what he's able to do in a 5-round war against a cardio machine in Nate Diaz, who has a more diverse game than Dustin Poirier, in my opinion. Also, too, from that square stance, like you think like when Conor McGregor gets into a pure striking match, who has beaten him? Who has even looked good aside from the greatest boxer of our generation, Floyd Mayweather Jr.? Who's done that? Poirier, I don't think is going to he's not much of an offensive wrestler anyway. That's not something that he wants to rely on typically. Maybe he switches up the formula this time. That would make sense. But also, if he gets into that square stance, he gets close enough to where he can shoot for that takedown. Man, it's hard to shoot from that takedown in that square stance. It's hard to go from your strongest position as a striker into a wrestling position right there when your feet are in that position. So I think while Poirier has looked great since the McGregor fight, and he has added his own, potentially all-time great legacy in the lightweight division, I don't think the way he fights is going to be enough for Conor McGregor. If Conor McGregor is at his sharpest, which I'm led to believe he is, I think McGregor gets it done, and I think it's going to look pretty damn crazy. 3rd, 4th round for McGregor. I think he puts his lights out. All right, fellas. So that's going to do it this week on Unleash. You know where to check out Ben and Jay. You can find their work on Sherlock.com. Of course, our Twitter handles are beneath us. And for me, you can find my work on MMA On Point and The Body Lock. So you know what you got to do. Like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell that friend. Did I fuck up my own outro there? Let's do that one more time. Like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. Tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. And stay beautiful, stay positive, and always stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.